Good morning, members. It is the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call to order today's meeting. Please note that since the previous meeting, the Secretariat has issued two papers. They are CB brackets 11444 2024 brackets 01 and 02, or rather 1426 01 and 2. They are the letters sent by Ms. Doreen KONG requesting a debate on the regulatory mechanism for residential care home for disabled people. Now, lists of outstanding items and lists of follow-up actions, CB brackets 11444 01 and 02. And on the 26th of November this year, we are going to convene a special meeting at 10:30 a.m. That is in relation to the regulatory issues on residential care homes for disabled people, and also the yearly adjustment to the social welfare security schemes amount, as well as CSSA employment support. Now, as the regular meeting on the 9th of December, we are going to have a discussion on two items suggested by the administration. One, enhancing the residential care services scheme in Guangdong, and also the pilot scheme on subsidy for elderly CSSA recipients to reside in residential care homes in Guangdong. There being no views, that is decided. Now, today we have representatives from the Labor and Welfare Bureau and the HYAB. The government officials are going to brief us on the Policy Address 2024. Now, please refer to brackets CB brackets 11444 brackets 03 and 4. In a moment, I'm going to invite Mr. Chris Hon, Secretary for Labor and Welfare, to walk us through his policy purview, to be followed by Mr. Clarence Leung, Undersecretary for Home and Youth Affairs, for a briefing. Members who would like to speak, you may now press the button. Mr. Chris Hon, please. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. I will take a few minutes to brief members on this year's policy address measures about labor and welfare. First, targeted poverty alleviation. Now, we have identified the targeted group to give particular help to those who have been waiting for a long time. Now, there are several highlights. First, Stripe and Rise program. This is the third cohort. We will recruit 4,000 mentees. Two, community living room. There are 4 existing community living rooms. As announced in the policy address, there will be at least 3 down the pipeline to help residents in subdivided units. 3, school-based after-school care service scheme. We are going to increase the number of quarter places and extend the scheme to 110 primary schools. Subject to the actual outcome, we will encourage more schools to participate in the next year without capping the number of places. Fourth, a new measure, as mentioned by the chairman. We will launch a pilot scheme to help CSSA recipients to reside in care homes in the Bay Area. If they choose to do so, we will provide an additional $5,000 monthly subsidy to them with a 1,000 quota. Now, about care for the elderly. Now, this year, the policy address has enhanced measures to promote cross-boundary elderly care services. Now, we are drastically increasing the number of mainland RCHEs to the residential care services scheme in Guangdong to 11. And also, for eligible elderly people, they will be provided with more medical support. Now, there will be a pilot scheme. Now, for elderly participants in the scheme, the need to pay their own share under the National Basic Medical Insurance Policy, but we will co-pay $30,000 per head for inpatient services to address their medical needs. Now, concerning the RCSV or Residential Care Service Voucher for the elderly, we are going to add another 2,000 quota places to give more choices for elderly people. And also, the HAMA and the Social Welfare Department are exploring with the banking sector on feasible ways to enable elderly persons to receive cash assistance from the government more conveniently in Guangdong. On protection of children, LegCo has passed the Mandatory Reporting of Child Abuse Ordinance. By January next year, it will be implemented. Now, in the interim 18-month transitional period, we are taking forward training and education. Now, this year's policy address mentioned that we will establish 4 community parents and children centers on a pilot basis to promote parent-child interaction. On support for working parents, we will add a new 8 standalone child care centers to provide 100 more care places. Now, for neighborhood support child care project, we will add the served places to 2,500. Now, on supporting carers, in the Southern Districts and Xinwan, we have been collaborating with the care teams, and the pilot scheme was well received. It's going to be extended to some 400 care teams in all 18 districts. They will be providing help to singleton and doubleton frail elderly people and their carers. Now, the 3-year Care the Carers campaign publicity projects will be continued. In terms of supporting persons with disabilities, this is also a major area in the policy address. Now, we will regularize the pilot projects on transitional support service for persons in mental recovery, and also we will establish 14 integrated community rehabilitation centers across the territory in phases. Also, we will also create 90 peer supporters. We have seen great results in other schemes, so we are going to implement peer support programs in support programs for PWDs as well. So that's for PWDs. Now, time is running short. I will pause here. Thank you, Secretary. Undersecretary for Home and Youth Affairs. Thank you. Good morning, members. Now, I'm going to brief members on our policy measures on social enterprises and the CCF. Now, social enterprises have been developing in Hong Kong. Over the years, the scope of products and services provided, as well as their service targets, have become more diversified. We will continue to make use of our platforms to promote social enterprises services, to encourage support and provide more platforms to provide supporting services for enhancing social enterprises capacity. We are launching the Enhancing Self-Reliance Through District Partnership Program for setting up or scaling up social enterprises targeting at the socially disadvantaged. Since its launch in 2006, we have approved grants of around $406 million for over 270 projects and employing over 7,700 persons. Now, in terms of the task force on the CCF task force, the Secretary for Social for Labor and Welfare chairs the task force, and the HYAB provides Secretariat's support. Now, if the policy bureaus consider that a project is appropriate under the fund, the proposals will be submitted to the task force and the Commission on Poverty for approval. The relevant projects will be implemented by the relevant bureaus. Now, since the establishment of the Community Care Fund in 2011, 69 assistance programs have been launched, benefiting some 2.95 million cases. So far, we have incorporated 25 programs under the CCF into its regular assistance program. Through ongoing review of existing programs, the CCF would identify individual programs that need to be revised or extended in a timely manner to better suit the needs of target beneficiaries. Thank you. Thank you, Undersecretary. So far, 12 members have requested to speak. They are Dr. Tan Yue-heng, Dr. Teck Chi Yun, Ms. Lam So-wai, Connie Lam, Mr. Chen Pui Leung, Chow Siu Chung, Kenneth Leung, Stanley Lee, Michael Tian, Ms. Lillian Kwok, Mr. Ambrose Lam, Dr. Frankie Ngang, and Ms. Doreen Kong. 5 minutes each, including questions and answers. Dr. Tan Yueheng. Thank you, Chairman. Now, elderly care. Now, the average lifespan for Hong Kong is 85 years old. It is very long. So how can we encourage elderly employment? That is an economic issue, but it is also a welfare issue. We often see elderly people in the 70s or even 80s pushing trolleys to collect recycled paper on the street. There are a number of reasons behind that. Sometimes it is because of the financial difficulties. They need to maintain an income, so that's the only option. I was often asked why there are so many elderly people pushing trolleys to collect recyclables in the community. Is it because that we don't have adequate support for elderly people? Well, to be honest, I think the government has a number of schemes to help elderly people, for example, CSSA and social assistance program, and so on. So what can we do better? Now, despite the efforts made by the government, people from outside Hong Kong do not understand these efforts. All they see is the image of elderly people pushing carts on the street. So that is similar to the situation of subdivided units. What does the Secretary think? Can we provide more employment options for elderly people other than collecting recyclables? Secretary, I thank Dr. Tan for your questions. It is not just the question of image or perceptions. The government has dedicated significant resources to help elderly people. Every 4 elderly people, 3 would be receiving various cash subsidies from the government. We have over 100 elderly care centers. We often see elderly people doing various kinds of work in the community. Some think that they are still capable of working. Many of them are already cases being followed by the Social Welfare Department. The question is not so simple. They do receive support, but they insist to keep working. Now, through concerted efforts, the government hopes that we can make the life of elderly people more comfortable and decent. But I think Dr. Tan's question is valid. We will do what we can, but for someone who doesn't understand our situation, it may be difficult to help them understand. So we will do our best. Rest assured, we have a wide range of support for elderly people. We can ensure that elderly people can lead a decent life.
Thank you, Chairman. I still have time left. I'd like to ask another question. Regarding the Guangdong scheme, it's been here for a number of years. It was launched in 2017. There was a study last year seeing that only 40% of Hong Kong elderly are aware of such a scheme. In other words, there are still a lot of people who don't know about the Guangdong scheme. So I'd like to know if there's any form of promotion or publicity, and I'd like to know how many elderly people have benefited. With the number of residential care homes going from 4 to 11, how many people will be able to benefit? Thank you. Secretary, I will ask the director to explain about it. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding our Guangdong scheme, at the beginning there were only two RCHEs in Shenzhen, Yantian, and Zhaoqing. We expect that there will be more people who are interested in retiring in Shenzhen. And in these 2 years, we have been trying to increase the number of residential care homes. We already have 11 located in different cities in the Greater Bay Area, 4 in Guangzhou, 3 in Foshan, and 2 in Shenzhen. There's also 1 in Shaoxing and 1 in Zhongshan, 11 altogether. The occupancy rate has been increasing over the years. However, for the 11 new RCHEs, they are only accepting applications since the 1st of November. As at end September 2024, there were about 270 elderly people who have benefited from the scheme. Next, Dr. Taechi Yin. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to talk about targeted poverty alleviation. I think that the government's policies are not targeted enough. First of all, the government has dispensed with the poverty line. So our discussions has been in a fog. I don't know how many people are living under the poverty line. We don't know if people are becoming poorer. There was a study conducted by Oxfam. It said that the percentage of poverty in Hong Kong is 20.2%. In other words, there are 1.395 million people living in poverty. Shouldn't we make reference to such figures? The secretary said that if we use the relative income as the poverty line, that is not feasible. So I wonder if there is any form of analysis done by the government so that we know if we have improved in such area, that is poverty alleviation. The secretary said that we are helping the underprivileged that are elderly singleton, doubleton, those living in subdivided units, and single parents or single parent families. For chronic illness patients, people with disabilities, and those who are born in Hong Kong with parents living in the mainland, they are underprivileged, but they are not included in your target groups. Third, we have a number of measures to target different group of people, but I don't think that is comprehensive enough. For elderly singleton and doubleton, their lives cannot be improved just by having visits from the community care home. We cannot lift people out of poverty by having community living room. The Strive and Rise program cannot eliminate the problem of intergenerational poverty. So I wonder if the government have done any analysis to look at the effectiveness of your measures. These are my problems about poverty alleviation. I also like to ask about employment of persons with disabilities, PWD. So I have a question for the LWB and HYAB. I wonder how you encourage the social enterprises to hire more PWD. Secretary. Thank you, Dr. Tick, for the question regarding poverty alleviation. This term of the government said very clear that we want to work on targeted poverty alleviation. We used to have a poverty line, but there are a lot of different disadvantages to it. It only measures relative income. With the aging population, the income of the elderly people is just the cash assistance from the government because most elderly people don't work. By measuring a poverty line does not look at the assets of the elderly people. Say for a person with a lot of assets, if they don't have income, then they would be considered poor. There are a lot of deficiencies to adopting the poverty line. You cannot tell who is having a poor quality of life just by adopting the poverty line. So we think that we have to figure out who the target groups are, who we need to help. Hong Kong has been a caring society. We dedicate a lot of resources into welfare services and education, and they account for about 60% of our overall recurrent expenditure. Dr. Tick talked about persons with disabilities and chronic illness patients. They are being taken care of under our healthcare systems. For targeted poverty alleviation, we're talking about those who are underprivileged at the end of the line. We provide much support in terms of social welfare, education, and housing. For those living in subdivided units, they may not have the lowest income, but their living conditions are very poor. That's why we have this community living room to help them. For a single parent family, they don't necessarily earn a low income, but they have to take care of their children, so they cannot work. That's why we roll out childcare services to help them. That's what we mean by poverty alleviation. Same goes for elderly singleton and doubleton. As for PWD, I'll ask the HYAB to talk about that. And then I will ask the Commissioner for Rehabilitation, Labor and Welfare Bureau to elaborate. Thank you. In terms of social enterprises, our policy is very clear. We adopt different means to support the development of social enterprises. We enhance their capacity. We encourage cross-sectoral collaboration and help them with promotion and publicity. We also provide subsidies to particular social enterprises. For SE established for PWD, I understand that LWB help PWD establishing SE. After the social enterprise has been established, we hope that they will enjoy our support in terms of publicity, promotion, and capacity establishment. What about PWD? Let me supplement. We already have a scheme to encourage social enterprises to hire more PWDs. We will see if we can remove barriers and relax the requirements under the enhancement employment of people with disabilities through small enterprise project. Maybe we will relax the threshold so that more social enterprises will be eligible. We are looking into it. Thank you. Next, Ms. Lam So-wai. Thank you, Chairman. We always say that we have to understand change and embrace changes. I'd like to ask about children protection and elderly care. Starting from this month, there will be 7 new RCHEs under the Guangdong scheme in different cities under the Greater Bay Area. The panel on social welfare went to Guangzhou and Foshan together with the secretary to visit different RCHEs. we need to make our, well, I understand that RCHEs in the Greater Bay Area are more comfortable and spacious than those in Hong Kong. 5 out of 7 in the RCHEs in the Guangdong schemes are star-rated senior care organizations, and it is said that they are 4-star organizations. For elderly with chronic patients, these RCHEs may be a good choice for them. But what about those with Alzheimer's or dementia? Do they have any support for them? From 16 to 2017, there were some 5 to 8% of elderly people with dementia. So in other words, we have a large number of elderly with dementia in Hong Kong. In 2039, there will be over 300,000 elderly over 65 years old with dementia. So I think that we have to enhance the care for dementia patients in the Greater Bay Area. With a spacious environment that may worsen the situation for some of the dementia patients. I wonder how the RCHEs in the Guangdong scheme provide support to Alzheimer's or dementia patients and how they make sure that the family members are confident in them. In Hong Kong, it's difficult enough for us to provide dementia service. I think that it will be even more difficult in the Greater Bay Area. My second point on the mandatory reporting of child abuse bill, there was an 18-month transitional period for the ordinance. I know that there will be training for mandated reporters and there will be protocol in place. Some practitioners in the education sector told me that they don't really have much information on the ordinance, especially international schools, teachers, and principals. So I wonder if the training will cover all education trade practitioners. Some international school teachers told me that when they called the hotline, the administration told them that they still need time to figure out where the line should be drawn. In 2026, I know that there will be 4 community parents and children centers. I wonder where they will be located. Will they be located in Yuen Long, Tuen Mun, Kwun Tong, and Shan Shui Po, where there are a lot of child abuse cases? What kind of service will be provided in these centers? Very often, members, please leave some time for the administration to reply. Marriage, parenting skills are involved. So I wonder if these centers will enhance support for parenting skills. Chairman, I will talk about the mandated child abuse. For the other questions, I will ask the Undersecretary and the Director to respond. We have this Guangdong scheme, but that's just a choice for elderly people. A person may choose to retire in Guangdong, and they just have to go only if they think that is appropriate for them. That's just an alternative for them. We understand that elderly people are more likely to suffer from dementia. We welcome them staying in Hong Kong. We will definitely provide the best service for them. But for some elderly people, after visiting the RCHEs in Guangdong, they may choose to retire there after discussing with their family members. I will ask the Director to elaborate. Thank you. For
In Hong Kong's care homes for the elderly, I think there is a high ratio of dementia patients among the population. So for residential care homes under the GDRCS scheme, some of them have the qualifications to care for dementia patients. We will provide certain subsidies to these care homes. Now, whether the family members of the elderly people have confidence in these care homes is also our consideration. As mentioned by the Secretary, we are going to give the family members more options, and there is a trial period of 6 months. If the elderly person can adapt to the life there, of course they can remain. If not, they can return to Hong Kong and keep the position in the waiting line to be allocated a place in Hong Kong. Members, I remind you, please leave some time for the officials to answer your questions, unless you are just stating your opinions. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chen Pui-Leung. My question is about cross-boundary medical care for elderly people. The Secretary mentioned that for eligible person in the mainland, they would be given a subsidies to take out an insurance policy locally. Now, does that only apply to elderly people under the Guangdong scheme? Now, in 2024, the average financial subsidies for each person is $640 per year, and each person must pay $380 per year. Now, most of the participants in the Guangdong scheme are elderly people, and they have a shorter contribution period under the insurance scheme. So what will be the level of financial subsidies made by the government, and how much will the elderly people have to pay? Now, how does that offset the medical costs borne by the patients and the government in Hong Kong? Now, paragraph 5 mentioned about the co-payment arrangements for elderly people, $10,000 for outpatient service and 30,000 RMB for inpatient service. So, do both apply to eligible elderly people? Thank you. There are several concepts at play here. First of all, the country is very considerate for Hong Kong people. So as long as you have a permit of stay in the city, then the country would take out the two insurance schemes, the two insurance policies for Hong Kong people, since the elderly people will not be working there. So that's very considerate. For elderly people who are not under the Guangdong scheme, well, the one I mentioned was a preferential arrangement offered by the country to Hong Kong people. Now, for eligible elderly people under the Guangdong scheme, they have been assessed under the standardized assessment, and they chose to stay in Guangdong. So similarly, with a permit of stay in the city, after 6 months' time, we would take out the two insurance plans for the elderly people. It's not very expensive. However, under the National Basic Medical Insurance Policy, patients need to co-pay. For example, for $100 spent on outpatient service, the insurance scheme would cover half of it, and you need to pay the remaining 50 RMB. Now, for our plan, we can co-pay 60 or 70% of the payments, but you need to pay the remaining 30%. Now, for elderly people under the Guangdong scheme, sometimes they would choose to come back to Hong Kong to receive medical help. Now, for chronic patients, we would like them to receive care in situ. Now, we will not be paying an additional cost for them because in Hong Kong, the cost for providing care services is much higher than that in the mainland. Now, like Mr. Shabalong said, we need to be adaptive. So the concept is it would be more expensive to provide elderly people with care in Hong Kong. So we would use the amount saved to subsidize the national basic medical insurance policy of elderly people in the mainland. So under a co-payment arrangement, we will subsidize a maximum of $10,000 in outpatient service and $30,000 in inpatient service. But that's only for eligible elderly people under the Guangdong scheme. Now, may I invite the Undersecretary to supplement? Thank you. Now, the eligibility is an elderly person having stayed in a mainland city for 6 months, they will be eligible for the insurance policies paid by the central government. Now, this applies to Hong Kong people staying in 8 mainland GBA cities, excluding Shenzhen. Now, it depends on the number of participants. We have already set aside reserve to cope with the increase in the number of participants in the future. Now, concerning the 10,000 and 30,000 RMB subsidies, elderly people can get them both. In other words, the total subsidized amount is $40,000. Chairman, does it mean that it applies to elderly people under the Guangdong scheme? The government would take out the insurance policy for them. Now, to clarify, there are some 200 eligible elderly people, so we would take out the rural insurance policy for them. It's just $200. And then there is the co-payment subsidy of $40,000. But if you are not eligible, the country would take out the rural and city, rural urban insurance policy for them, but we were not going to co-pay the other parts for them. Mr. Zhao Xiuxiong, thank you. I thank the government and the secretaries for the great measures to alleviate poverty in the policy address. Now, in the previous school year, the government, the reception about the school-based after-school care service scheme was great. So it is a great program to unleash local workforce. Now, I welcome the government's promise to encourage more schools to participate in the service scheme without capping the service quota. What specific measures will you take to encourage schools to join? I think the removing the cap of service quotas is not enough. And also, is there a KPI, say, the targeted number of onboarding each year? Now, paragraph 11 in the paper, it mentions that there will be a new aided childcare centers next year. Now, after 2024, in the subsequent 3 years, there will be 11 aided CCCs in Hong Kong. I wonder what the distribution will be like geographically. Now, in 2011, in the Wang Dai Xin district, for every 99 children under 9, there are only there was only one place. In Chun Mun, only one in every 90 children. So will these aided CCC be established in districts with great demand? Another question was asked by Dr. Dick Jin as well, supporting employment of PWDs. Now, the government is going to enhance the enhancing employment of people with disabilities through small enterprise project. Now, besides the enhancement of these projects, would there be other projects to promote more social enterprises to be established to absorb the PWDs into the workforce? And will there be a KPIs on the number of social enterprises to be set up next year? Secretary. Chairman, concerning the after-school care service scheme and the measures to support working parents, I will invite the Permanent Secretary to answer this question. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the after-school care service scheme, I thank Mr. Chao Xiu-chung for his support. Since the launch of the project, we have heard great things from the users, from our post-service survey. The service scheme was very helpful for working parents and the students themselves. Now, the service scheme targeted parents and students in need, especially single-parent families. With a safe and convenient place to care for children after school, single parents who originally needed to stay at home to take care of their child can now engage in part-time or even full-time work. Mr. Chao Xiu-chung's question is how we can further extend the scope of this popular program. Now, for schools, we are providing assistance in two areas. It is a collaboration between subsidized social welfare organizations and schools. We are using the resources under the Community Care Fund to match these schools with social welfare bodies with the ability to provide after-school care. So after the launch of the program 2 years ago, many schools told us that the program was very beneficial to the parents and the children. Now, we have gained experience from the program as well. We would like to provide more flexibility to this scheme. We can adopt a more flexible approach towards the eligibility of students. And also, the same social welfare organization can be engaged to look after students in multiple schools, so that more schools would be willing to participate in the program. Now, about the new aided CCCs and their whereabouts. When choosing the location of the aided CCC, we would consider the demand for service. But realistically speaking, we need to identify places for these facilities. And also, we need to consider whether there are supporting facilities nearby. Now, for the 11 aided CCC, one will be located in the Queens Hill Estate, the other one in Warming Estates in Fanling, the other one in Fanling, one in Shunlei Estate in Kwun Tong. The fifth one is in Changshun Street, Shamshui-Po. The sixth in Kwai Fong Estate in Kwei Ching. The seventh at Chung Kwan O Government multiple users offices. And also, some will be added to Kwun Tong and Shamshui-Po, altogether 400 quarter places.
Under Secretary, what about social enterprises? Like what I said in my reply to Dr. Tick, the HYAB and the Home Affairs Department will support social enterprises. Mr. Kenneth Lang. Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad to see that we are expanding the Strive and Rise program. I think that the program is very meaningful. I hope that the Alumni Club will organize more activities. However, I'd have a question regarding the Alumni Club for the Secretary. Alumni Club composes of members aged between 16 and 21. And the club also offers internship opportunities. And these internships usually last 4 to 5 days. But I think that young people aged over 18 need longer internship, because the program also covers people aged over 18. Will you consider organizing internship of 4 weeks or 6 weeks long? There are youth groups offering such opportunities. The members of the Alumni Club will have to leave after they have reached 22 years old. Well, 20 years old is when people start working and the time when they need more support. So will the administration relax the age restrictions? Will you consider it? I also have questions on social enterprises. For the Enhancing Self-Reliance Through District Partnership Program, the ESR program, under the program, a lot of SEs have benefited, and the survival rate is very high. However, with the weakening of our country's economy, I see service industries and catering industries facing great pressure. Some of these enterprises facing pressure are those under the ESR program. So on top of publicity and promotion, does the administration have any concrete support or assistance by, for example, extending the assistance period? The Secretary will take the first question first. Chairman, I will ask the Undersecretary to elaborate on the details of the Alumni Club under the Strive and Rise program. Thank you. Mr. Leung talked about the Alumni Club. Well, the Alumni Club provides internship experience for their members. That's just one of the elements of the club. By having the Alumni Club, we want to encourage whole person development. So apart from on-the-job internship experience, we also organize interests, classes, and mainland exchange tours. We encourage youth leaders to join the Alumni Club to continue their learning experience under the Strive and Rise program. As for how we can further enhance the program, we will consider different options. Undersecretary. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for the question. I thank Mr. Leung for pointing out some of our work under the ESR program. Let me share with you our observations. Social enterprises operate on a self-financing basis with a certain social purpose. For activities organized by enterprises subsidized by us, as well as those under the ESR program, we understand that people are having more new ideas in terms of social innovation and social enterprises. I see some creative concepts. Under this weakened economy, I think that enterprises will adapt to changes. in terms of their mode of operation, they may also adjust their purpose or their target groups. Apart from publicity and promotion, two years ago, we created this mascot of Bloomy the tree. This social enterprise mascot is very popular. We promote it on various social media platforms. Social enterprise operate on a self-financing basis, and they have to compete with other companies in the market. Apart from the assistance that we offer to the social enterprises that I just mentioned, actually these enterprises also enjoy support from under other government schemes. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Secretary, I have 4 questions. First, this mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance. I'd like to ask about the promotion of publicity. There is a study saying that 40% of trade practitioners have never heard of this mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance. I thought that a lot of Hong Kong people know about the scheme because we discussed it for 7 hours in the council meeting. So how will you make sure that the 25 types of mandated reporters know what they have to do? Because I was surprised that so many people didn't know about the ordinance despite it having been enacted. There was an incident that was published or publicized only 2 months after. The secretary said that we have to avoid re-traumatizing the victim. That's why they didn't announce it earlier. However, I think that those on the waiting list have to know. Is there any guidelines from the social welfare department as to when the care homes have to make announcement of the abuse after the incident has happened? When I was the chairman of the KCR, there was a notification mechanism of 20 minutes, and the KCR announced incidents in 8 minutes. I'd also like to ask about the residential care service schemes in the mainland. You said that you will install CCTVs to monitor the service. I wonder if they are using the CCTV to just film what's going on so that when incidents happen, they can prosecute the perpetrator, or are they going to hire people to actually monitor the situation 24 hours a day? It is said that in March 2024, the administration have introduced this AI element into the CCTV in child care centers, and it is said that in December, the systems can be put in place. What about Hon Chi Association and other elderly care associations? Will they be able to integrate AI into their monitoring system or CCTV? Because the Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children can already make use of such technology. We have to enhance penalty to increase deterrent effect. One case is one too many. We don't have enough manpower. It seems that we have to rely on AI. My last point. Last month, the SWDs asked the RCHEs and childcare centers to look into their CCTV systems, and they have to reply in November. So I wonder if these homes have submitted their report, and I wonder if you will read the report. If the report is compiled in an unsatisfactory way, will you ask them to rewrite it? And will you follow up on the implementation of the proposal submitted by the homes? Is there any penalty involved if they don't implement the proposals? Thank you. Well, we will organize a meeting on Honshu Association next time. I think we should follow up on the issue in the next meeting. Chairman, I completely agree with you. I thank Mr. Tan for the questions. For the last 3 questions, they relate to the Honshu Association. So I propose that we discuss it in the special meeting to be convened next time. Let's discuss the issue in detail in that meeting. As for the promotion of the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance, I will ask the Undersecretary to elaborate. As far as I understand, people are aware of the ordinance. We have to target the 20-odd mandated reporters. We are already rolling out training for mandated reporters. I will ask Undersecretary to give you more detail. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Tan, for the question. Regarding promotion and publicity, in February this year, we already rolled out the first module of training for the 20-odd mandated reporters or types of mandated reporters. The numbers that we get is very satisfactory. A large number of mandated reporters have signed up for the first module. Upon passage of the bill, we will formulate the second module. The second module focuses on the legislation and the legal elements of the ordinance. In the middle of this year, we submitted the framework of the mandated reporter guide to the Legislative Council. We have almost completed the chapters on physical abuse and sexual abuse in the mandated reporter's guide. As for negligence and psychological abuse, we are pressing ahead with formulating the chapters under the guidance of our expert panel. By the middle of next year, we will have a draft of the guide available. By then, we will send the guide to the sector. By the end of last year, we will roll out the guide together with the Module 2 of the training. Thank you. Chairman, I have a follow-up question. Can you undertake that you will conduct another study towards the end of the transitional period? That is, after your comprehensive publicity campaign, will you conduct another study to learn about how many people are aware of the ordinance? The Secretary said that we were not going to discuss Honshu Association today. I'd just like to hear more about that. But what about CCTV? That's not directly related to just Honshu Association. Regular residential care homes face the same problem. Will you integrate AI into CCTV across different homes in Hong Kong? Secretary. Mr. Tan quoted the study saying that only 40% of people are aware of the ordinance. We don't know about the methodology of the study conducted by the Protection of the Children. I know that 100% of the people who are required to report child abuse are aware of the ordinance. We will promote public awareness. We will make sure that those who are mandated to report are aware of the ordinance. As the Undersecretary said, we will promote publicity towards the end of next year. When I went to the opening ceremony of a seminar, I said that we subsidize the Protection of the Children Society to improve their CCTV systems by integrating AI element. That's just a pilot scheme. We have to work on the technology and detail. We all know that AI is very useful, but there could be numerous false alarms because the CCTV operate 24 hours a day. How do we make sure that the AI is useful? AI still also needs to learn. They have to distinguish between a normal behavior or child abuse. Whenever an alarm is sounded, people have to attend to it. We have to make sure that we conduct a pilot scheme first. Let's see if the AI is useful. If the pilot scheme is successful, we will try to expand the adoption of such technology. Thank you.
This is something that the government has been worrying about. Now, when we were talking about installing an anti-drowning system in our public swimming pool, the government was scared about false alarm, but that was a technology used by everywhere else. Ms. Lillian Kwok, now let me praise the government on the Strive and Rise program. I'm also a mentor. I have my own mentee. But for the next step forward, can the government provide more support for mentors? As a mentor, I have my understanding towards special education because I am a professional. However, a lot of mentors told me that they have no knowledge on communicating with children with special needs. So in the future, I hope that the program can be enhanced so that more young people can be benefited. So let's give more training and education to mentors. Now about targeted poverty alleviation, the school-based after-school care service scheme. I'm pleased that the government has listened to my views. We need to provide the service in a targeted manner. International school students don't need the service. So school principals and teachers should give the best welfare services to students on a need basis. So I thank the government for that. Now about after-school care and after-school counseling services, the Secretary said that he would review the arrangement with the Education Bureau to avoid duplication of resources. So I hope the LWB and the EDB can conduct a comprehensive review to ensure that all resources are spent effectively. Now, some students have enrolled in both the after-school care and after-school counseling program, and there is a duplication of services. Now, about the community, parents and children centers, there are 4 pilot centers, but there are already 19 parents and relatives resource centers, and there are also 4 co-parenting resource centers. So we have a lot of resources for that. Now, I know you are very meticulous in terms of assigning the case into various categories, but in Taiwan, they only have 1 parenting resource centers, and that covers everything. Now, why don't we consolidate the resources into establishing only 1 parenting resource centers in each of the 18 districts? That may be a more effective way to use our resources. Another member mentioned about marital counseling and marital support. Now, there is a restriction. There is a large loophole under the children custodial ordinance. So that ordinance needs some updating. So what is your thought on that, Secretary? I thank Ms. Lillian Kwok for his recognition and her questions. Now about Strive and Rise program and the support for mentors, I would defer to the Undersecretary. Concerning the collaboration between the RWB and the Education Bureau, we enjoy a very close partnership. We make sure that the resources are utilized effectively to provide services to students. Now, about the consolidation of resources to provide resource for parents, I defer to the Permanent Secretary, Director of Social Welfare. Now, thank you. Concerning mentors under the Strive and Rise program, we do offer training to mentors. Now, in the first cohort, we required mentors to attend the training in person between 7 and 9 p.m. But we heard views that some mentors would like to have more flexibility. So in the second cohort, besides in-person training, we also added the option of online training. Concerning SEN students with special educational needs, we encourage mentors to approach the community organizations and the social workers therein. Some mentors do not have the expertise to deal with SEN students. So for these cases, social workers under the community partners may provide assistance. Sorry, there is another question about the community parents and children centers and also the children custody ordinance. Please switch on the mic. Mr. Wong, the Undersecretary. Mr. Alex Wong, Deputy Director of Social Welfare. Please switch on his microphone. Yes. We are providing different services to parents to support them in parenting. Now we have the co-parenting support centers. That is to provide support for parents undergoing a divorce. Despite the failure of their marriage, we would help them to continue with their parental duties. And also we have Parents and Relatives Resources Center. That is a center for helping SEN students' parents. Dedicated support would be given to these parents to train their children during the golden period. Concerning the community parents and children centers mentioned in the policy address, the targeted service users are parents with their own special needs, for example, postnatal depression or young mothers with, say, depressions and other mental health issues. The point is to provide them with early stage support so that they can still perform their duties as a parent. Sorry, my question was not answered. I asked whether the resources centers, say parents and relatives resource centers and so on, would be consolidated into a single center for more effective use of resources. And what about the parents and child ordinance and the arrangements about custody? Actually, there is a division of labor. We have already consolidated our resources into 4 separate centers. If integration is needed, we will do it. But if there is a clear division of labor, I don't see the need to consolidate the resources. Now, about the children proceedings, parental responsibility bill, the bill has been drafted, but there was great divergence in society. Many people would like to see the bill passed, but some single mothers strongly opposed to the bill. They consider that their welfare would be undermined by the bill. So we have been working on other fronts. For example, the co-parenting centers to help single parents. It would gauge whether there is a shift in public sentiment towards the bill. If there is a consent, we would implement the arrangements. But if there is still a great divergence in society, we can't force it. We need to have a strong consensus in society to take this forward. Mr. Ambrose Lam. Chairman, I first thank the government before I say my criticism. Now, I applaud the Social and Welfare Department and Labor and Welfare Bureau for their work. However, in helping children in divorced families, it seems that the government is still turning a blind eye towards this. Now, the Children Proceedings Parental Responsibility Bill has been discussed for more than 20 years. The Secretary said that there is still a lack of consensus. However, I think there is a consensus among judicial officers, judges, lawyers, and social workers. They all support the bill. Now, there are lots of co-parenting centers in the territory, but the government is still saying they need further studies. Now, on the 17th of June this year, at the WSP meeting, most members stated their categorical support for the bill. They all think that the government should initiate the legislative procedure soon. The government said that they needed to wait for the result of the survey. Now the survey results are available, but I think there are a lot of misunderstandings. I wrote to the secretary that the questions were drafted in a misleading manner. However, the government just gave me the same old versions without addressing my questions. I almost suspected that it was a reply given by an AI. Is it true? Is the government using AI to reply legislative members' questions? After this episode, I'm very skeptical about the government's understanding towards the bill. If you don't understand, please approach us, lawyers, for an explanation. We won't charge you. The survey, the questionnaires was drafted poorly. Now, to protect children, we can't just rely on the centers. We need to start with legislation. We need to educate parents on what parental responsibilities are. Now, there were 5 co-parent support centers. The social workers told me that the parents were very difficult to reach through. Without the legislation, it is very difficult to mediate between divorcing parents. Without this piece of legislation, no matter how many co-parenting support centers you establish, no matter how much mediation you provide, it is not enough. Now, according to the government, there is still a lack of consensus, so it is inappropriate to restart the legislative process. Well, that's the reason I think we can all go home. When will the government reintroduce the bill to legislate and restart the legislative procedure? Secretary.
I thank Mr. Lam for the question. I met the Lawyers Association and Society. I know that they want us to go ahead with the bill. Some trade practitioners also want so. The government has already actually drafted the bill. But the target groups of the bill are divorced parents. Divorced mothers will be affected the most. If the majority of the divorced mothers don't understand the bill or have divergent views, on the bill, the government should not press ahead with the enactment of the bill. If the divorced parents or divorced mothers don't want us to enact the bill, we should not do so. We want to proceed with the bill. That's why we distributed the questionnaires. If all the divorced mothers and parents want us to go ahead with the bill, we will do so. Social workers and lawyers, if you actually want us to enact the bill, please reach out to the divorced mothers, educate them about the bill. If the divorced mothers think that the bill is beneficial to them, then they will agree to us promoting it because people's rights are involved. I think that the government should listen to people who are affected, especially divorced mothers. We're working on it. We're trying to let divorced mothers know about the bill. We try to answer their inquiries. Thank you. Chairman, the secretary said that divorced mothers object to the bill. I hope that the administration will give us a list of such organizations so that the barristers and social workers can explain to them how the bill will benefit and protect them as well as their children. Due to time limit, I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes to 12:30 p.m. Next, Mr. Ngaman Yu. Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 questions and comments. First, regarding cross-boundary elderly care. Now, under the Guangdong scheme, RCHEs are located in 5 mainland cities. We expanded to Chaoshan, Fujian. Will the government consider working with RCHEs in Chaoshan and Fujian? Second, on safety belt. A lot of elderly want to have a safety belt installed, but it involves a fee. So I wonder if the government can offer subsidy for elderly in need. Because the government currently only offers subsidy to CSSA recipients, we extend the group of beneficiaries so that they can install the safety belt. Third, on the Strive and Rise program, I think that the second cohort of students benefit more than the first cohort of the students. Will you step up publicity to let the people know some of the real stories of the students, apart from the study conducted by the Polytechnic University? That's some good materials for telling good stories of Hong Kong. Secretary, thank you. Regarding this residential care services scheme in Guangdong, it's a scheme targeting Guangdong province. It just so happens that those 7 RCHEs are located inside the Greater Bay Area. We will work with RCHEs in cities outside the Greater Bay Area in Guangdong. But if they are further away, there could be more challenges. I understand that there are a lot of retirees in Chaoshan, but we will not consider Fujian because the scheme focuses on Guangdong. As for the care on call service, apart from CSSA recipients, the housing department offer a similar scheme to help elderly living in public rental housing to install the safety belt. We also have community care teams. In the Southern District and Chunman District, elderly people in need who may not be CSSA recipients may apply for the subsidy. For non-CSSA recipients, if the community care team notice such need from such elderly, then the case will refer to the social welfare department and we will arrange for such installation for them. Chairman, I have a follow-up question regarding safety bell. The subsidy ceiling is $2,500. Is only sufficient for 25 months. So starting from the 26th month, they will stop using the service. After referral of the community care team, what is the charge for a non-CSSA recipient? Anything to add? For cases referred by the community care teams under the social welfare department, we have an agreement with the care and call service provider. Within the 18th month of the pilot scheme, we offer installation of safety belt free of charge. Thank you. Next, Ms. Doreen KONG. Thank you, Chairman. The government stresses a targeted poverty alleviation, and they have identified SDU households and elderly singleton as the target groups. They also have the community living room, the Strive and Rise program. I support all of these schemes. In the second cohort of the Strive and Rise program, I was a mentor. I think that this program is beneficial to grassroots children. And this also enhances our sense of responsibility to the program, to this community. I will continue to support the third cohort of the Strive and Rise program. The Oxfam published a report on poverty in Hong Kong. It is said that non-economic active people amount to 1 million people in Hong Kong. That's an increase of 22.8% compared to pre-pandemic level. So I have a question for the administration. How will you formulate and implement effective poverty alleviation measures targeting this group of people that are non-economically active? Apart from elderly, singleton, single-parent families, and SDUs households, how can the administration cover other groups in poverty? Will you target people who are poor or have difficulties? Now, regarding PWD, I read a report on accessible channels. When PWD try to use certain services, they face difficulties and they were denied service. When the government is constructing public facilities and transport facilities, will you step up the construction of accessible facilities so that we can cater to the needs of different people in Hong Kong? Will you learn from other places by asking explicitly the enterprises to ensure the protection of the interest of PWDs? If they violate such requirements, there could be penalty. For old buildings, will you ask them to enhance their accessibility? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Ms. Kong, for the question. First, I thank Ms. Kong for being the mentor under the Strive and Rise program. I know that a number of members are mentors under the program. As for targeted poverty alleviation, as I've explained multiple times, we should not make use of this concept of relative income to set the poverty line. There are a number of deficiencies and disadvantages to it. I will not repeat them. For those who are financially incapable, they're mostly elderly. If we measure their income, we're only measuring how much cash assistance they receive from the government. We dedicate huge sum of financial resources into offering such cash assistance to the people, especially the elderly. 3 out of 4 elderly people in Hong Kong are receiving cash assistance from the government. As for building a barrier-free city, the government has done a lot on it, but that's not under the purview of the LWB. I know that the Assistant Financial Secretary lead a working group on how to make our buildings more accessible and barrier-free. I hope that, well, on top of wheelchair users, those who are visually impaired along with people with other disabilities can access our facilities in a barrier-free manner. Ms. Kong just quoted an example. There was a wheelchair user who was denied access to the restaurants. That's not a accessible kind of issue. I think that we should encourage the members of the public to offer a convenience to wheelchair users when they try to access various kinds of service. We also have an Equal Opportunities Commission to make sure that the interests of PWDs are protected. Next, Dr. David Lam. Thank you. The target groups for poverty alleviations are people living in subdivided units, inadequate housing, single-parent families, elderly singleton, and doubleton. Elderly singleton and doubleton who are hidden and carers may be the group of people that we need to help the most. There was a recent incident involving elderly singleton and doubleton who are carers and who are hidden. It's difficult for us to identify this group of people, however. Will you create a list of people in need? Apart from social welfare department and NGOs, maybe we should ask the healthcare sector, the poverty management sector to provide information when they come across suspected cases. Maybe they can refer the information to the social workers or healthcare practitioners for verification, and if necessary, maybe they can provide a targeted service. I think that this is a step forward for us to identify those who are hidden. My second question on community resources. For healthcare, we have district healthcare centers, we have elderly care centers. For social welfare, we already have a number of organizations. Some elderly cannot become member to any single organization. Some elderly people are members to a lot of different organizations. Can we encourage NGOs to organize activities not just for their members, but also for members of district health care centers, for example? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Dr. Lam, for the 2 questions. I will take the second question first. Our social welfare system cover extensively. We provide service through thousands of NGOs and social enterprises and units. We make use of information extensively. We have a carer information website. NGOs and non-subsidized organizations submit information. For NGOs that organize activities, they can promote their events on the website. If you're a carer, you want to know what activities and events we have, please log on to our website. We ask the NGOs and event organizers to offer us the most updated information. These events not just cater to their members. So I hope that the carers will access this information gateway for carers. For hidden elderly and high-risk elderly, we offer targeted services to them through NGOs. We also sometimes ask the social workers to knock on the doors of some elderly to identify them. We now make use also of big data, not just under the NGOs network, but also the healthcare sector. Some caring private healthcare practitioners may be able to submit or supply us with information on top of the hospital authority system. For carers and elderly who are in need, we try to identify them as early as possible. And we will try to intervene. But as to whether we will come up with a list of high-risk people, it may be rather difficult. I think that as long as we have a monitoring mechanism, we can cater to their needs. Risks of families change in time. One family may not be high risk at one point, but may become high risk at another point. We'll make use of technology to help our people. We'll be careful in order not to violate the privacy ordinance.
Mr. Andrew Lam. Now, there's no debate that we have an aging population. Now, there are various risks to elderly people. But I think age alone cannot reflect a person's ability to work and contribute to the economy. Now, there is great differences in abilities among people of the same age. The policy address mentioned that we need to unleash the potential of the silver population. We need to provide retraining to elderly people to unleash their workforce. But there are no specific mentioned. How can we help them to unleash their productivity? The Secretary mentioned the use of big data. I'm curious on how much the government knows about the employability and the willingness to be employed among elderly people of different age groups, especially those who are able and want to work. Is the current policy sufficient in helping them to unleash their productivity? Are the private market stakeholders encouraged to employ elderly people to plug the manpower gap? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lam. Concerning big data, I referred to existing data we have. We have a huge depository of data. Now, in the social welfare department, we have lots of barrels of data. The difficulty is that there is no interconnection between these barrels of data. Of course, it would be most ideal if we can connect social welfare data with healthcare data. I'm not talking about gathering big data from scratch, because that would involve an exorbitant cost. On the other hand, we would like to employ the existing data efficiently to provide more help to at-risk groups, for example, singleton and doubleton elderly people, and help them unleash their productivity. On how we can help elderly people who can and want to rejoin the labor market to do so. We are going to continue with the existing measures like providing subsidies and so on. But the government alone is not enough. We have our role to play, but private enterprises and society as a whole need to participate as well. Many elderly people just want to contribute to society. They want to volunteer. They don't just want to be the charge of somebody else. They want to give back to society. So in terms of upskilling, we have the Elderly Academy. We have a lot of elderly people who became photographers and barbers on a voluntary basis. So if you take into account voluntary service provided by elderly people, you can see that they are very active. Now, in response to what the Secretary said, I fully agree with him. I mentioned my view because of the policy address. I think you have exhausted your arsenal in providing help, so what more can we do? Secretary, the Labor and Welfare Bureau is involved in promoting the silver economy, but we are not taking the lead in this effort. We welcome electrical members' views in how we can further promote silver economy. Mr. Bill Tang, thank you. There have been a lot of specific measures and programs to provide targeted alleviation to persons in poverty. Now, I think Singleton and Doubleton elderly people are a growing group. They become older, and there are more of them now. Now, as a 4-year member of the Commission on Poverty, I don't think we need to have the poverty line again. It is something in the past. Now, over the past 10 years, through the old-age living allowance and the old-age allowance and the enhancement, the government is already alleviating the financial difficulties of people in need. Now, in determining the poverty line, some people say that we should look at the amount of assets, the amount of income, and so on. The debate is never-ending. So I think it is better to leave it to the private sector to assess the poverty issue in Hong Kong through data, and the government itself should focus on providing real help. That would be better. Now back to elderly people support and identifying hidden elderly. Sometimes it would be inefficient to knock on the doors of these Singleton elderly people because they would not open the door for you. Now, sometimes the housing authority would not like the idea of having care teams and volunteers knock on the doors of the residents in the estate, not to mention in private housing estates. So the best thing to do is to provide a register to the care team members so that no security guards can stop them from paying visits. Now, 80% of the Singleton or Doubleton elderly people households are held by the social welfare departments already. The remaining 20% is not difficult to identify. So with this register, the care teams can reach out to the people in need. Now, some mentioned the question of privacy issue. Now, actually, under Section 59 of the Privacy Ordinance, there is an exemption clause. Now, based on health and other consideration, some restrictions can be waived. Now, when an elderly people apply for welfare, it should mean that they are automatically signing up for other elderly care services offered by the social welfare departments, including home visits. So let's not delay anymore. Let's provide this register to care teams and other voluntary groups to help them reach out to hidden elderly. Now, there are some 280,000 elderly members under the various centers, but that only accounts for 20% of the elderly population in Hong Kong, so we need to do more. Secretary, thank you. Bill? We share the determination to provide help to high-risk elderly people, in particular, the hidden elderly. But we need to be prudent in taking further steps. There are 1.7 million elderly people above 65 years of age. 1/3 of them, or 3/4 of them, are receiving various help from the government. But does it mean that they all want someone to knock on their door? Actually, many elderly people who receive the old age living allowance are perfectly fine on their own. It is just a token of thanks to people above 70 years of age. We're talking about 1.2 million elderly people. How many volunteers you need to knock on all the doors? I know Mr. Bill Tang came with good intention, but we need to consider the manpower required. We need to make use of big data and identify the risky households. But we share the same determination. I welcome Mr. Bill Tang's views. Now, I think we need to start with the old people above 80 years of age. That would be more efficient. Now, can I extend the meeting by 5 minutes? That is decided then. The second round, Ms. Hon Lam, I will give you 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman, for giving me the second round. I would like to follow up on the first round's question about protection of children. Now, the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance. What training will be given? How wide will the scope be? And also, what is the arrangements for the 4 parents and children centers? Would there be mental training and support for the parents? May I invite the Deputy Director of Social Welfare or the Deputy Secretary to answer the question? Mr. David Leung, Deputy Secretary. I thank Ms. Lam for her question concerning the mandatory reporting ordinance. Ms. Lam's question was on publicity and promotion. Now, the first phase beginner training program has been launched in February this year. The reception was great. Since the passage of the ordinance in middle of the year, we are now putting together the second module. It will focus on the legal concepts and the legal aspects of the law. Now, by the first quarter next year, we will have completed the second module. Together with the mandatory reporting guidelines for child abuse, which has been vetted by the relevant panel, we already have a framework. The 4 types of child abuse will be determined by middle of next year, and then we will begin the training campaign right away. Now, about the 4 parents and children centers, they're not just providing help depending on the needs of the children. It will take a comprehensive look at the entire well-being of the family as well. Now, AOB, we do have one AOB. On the 19th of November, a Tuesday, 9:25 a.m. until 12 p.m., we are going to visit the Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children. Now, that's all. Thank you.